So speaking of the ISS, I wanted to talk a little bit about Friday's spacewalk because it's been getting a lot of press, and understanding what's going on took me a while to detangle things. So Friday, we have second of a series of 3 spacewalks that are scheduled that are really, the goal is around replacing batteries on the International Space Station, getting them some more up-to-date modern lithium-ion batteries to make sure that it's safe and running. But of course, this one became extra important because there was a lot of PR and news around the fact that this was going to be the first ever all-female spacewalk. They had 2 American female astronauts scheduled to go on this spacewalk, Christina Cook, who is here on our left, as well as Annie McLean. They're both part of the 2013 astronaut class, which made news because it was 50-50 equally split between men and women. And they were even going to have females down on the ground crew supporting them, so it was going to be a full female team, and this is a first in NASA's history. Unfortunately, as of a couple days ago, we've had some crew shift, and we can no longer have that first all-female spacewalk. Engineer Nick Hague is going to be going out with Christina Cook here. So I wanted to look at why, because my knee-jerk reaction, and I think a lot of reactions from the public, was, oh my gosh, what happened? Why can't we do this? What's wrong with NASA? But there is a real easy explanation for this, and I wanted to break it down. And it all has to do with spacesuits. So here are the spacesuits on the International Space Station. This is our friend and local astronaut, Kjell Lindgren. But you can see the suits here are actually individual pieces. So it's not like there's one full medium suit that one person wears all of. They're actually in different sections. And so the issue is really around the medium torso. So astronaut McLean on Earth tested and trained with both the large torso and the medium torso. But when she went on her spacewalk on the 22nd, she found that the medium torso was much more comfortable. And that's because bodies change in microgravity. And it's notoriously hard to size a spacesuit on Earth because we don't know how an individual's physiology is going to change exactly when they get up to the space station. So astronaut McLean, we know, has grown 2 inches already in just her few weeks aboard the ISS. That's impressive. But we also have a lot of fluid shifting. Without gravity tugging fluids down in our body, like blood and other fluids, they tend to rise up to the top of the body. That's why you see astronauts a lot of the time look like they have very puffy faces and skinny legs when they're up on the ISS. It's because those fluids like to reside in the upper part of their body. It also ends up with some interesting things around taste for them. But this does shift the body shape. And so it was expected, she was kind of in between sizes, that she could potentially go either way. And it was 100% a safety call on her part to say, I need the medium suit. Because spacewalks are really hard. When you're out there for 6.5 hours, this was her out on the 22nd, you're doing a lot of work. These spacesuits are extremely rigid. They are hard to move around and move your joints in. To add to that, you are now in a vacuum. So you have air pressing down on all parts of your body, and there's nothing on the other side, which makes even just bending your hand to grasp a tool a really difficult and strenuous activity, much more so than it would be here on Earth. And it's also a fairly dangerous task. There's a lot of things that astronauts need to be careful of, micrometeorite impacts, tears on their suit, specifically their gloves. So when you add to that a suit that doesn't fit right, it makes it more strenuous and more unsafe. Specifically, if you have a suit that's too large, it could be difficult to reach in front where all of your computer controls are. So that is why she decided to go with that medium torso. It felt safer to her to be able to maneuver around the space station and do the tasks that she needed to do while coming back in safely. The problem is, astronaut Cook also needs the medium torso. Now, there are actually 2 medium torsos aboard the International Space Station right now, but one of them is currently not configured to be able to survive in a vacuum and ready to go on a spacewalk. There's about 12 hours worth of work that would need to be done to be able to get that configured, and most of that's around making sure the cooling system is up and running and keeping them at a good temperature. And astronaut schedules are really tightly scheduled for most days that they're up there. They get 1 day a week off, but most of that is critical maintenance of just keeping the space station running, quite frankly. And so the choice was, we can switch out the astronaut. We have Nick Hague, who fits in the large suit, is comfortable in it, we know this. Or we can spend the extra time to be able to do this historic spacewalk, which would have been so cool. But they ultimately chose the practical side of things, right? And so that's what's going on. It's not that we don't have enough suits to fit women. It's frankly that we don't have enough suits, period. Really, when it boils right down to it. The spacesuits that they're using are the same spacesuits they used on the space shuttle. They were designed in the 1970s and manufactured in the 1980s and are still in rotation today. So there were 18 spacesuits that were originally manufactured and made. Of those, 11 are still remaining. We lost some spacesuits to the Challenger and Columbia disasters, unfortunately. And of those, 4 spacesuits are on the ISS currently. The rest of them are back here on Earth in various states of refurbishment and testing and repairs. So they're not ready to fly yet either. But those 4 that are up there for 6 years or 25 EVAs, or extravehicular activities, spacewalks, if you will. Whichever comes first. So we plan on who's going to do the spacewalk based on what suits are available on the ISS, not who's going up there and what suits we need to send with them, if that makes sense. So ultimately, this was a really unfortunate PR kind of nightmare for NASA. It's not great. I'm very hopeful that we'll have something like this happen again soon in the future. NASA has worked very, very hard to get their astronaut corps better represented, with the women better represented there, and we're seeing a lot of new astronauts coming in that are women that are incredible. So I have no doubt we'll see it in the future. We're disappointed for Friday, but hopefully we'll see it soon. And then one other thing, there's new spacesuits in development, just not for the International Space Station. This is a Z2 prototype, more commonly known as the Tron suit. The Z1 looked like the Buzz Lightyear suit. I don't know what NASA spacesuit designers are doing, but it's kind of fun. This is designed for spacewalks on Mars. So we have invested a lot of money into designing new spacesuits for the Journey to Mars program, which are NASA's next steps into space. But a spacesuit that needs to be exposed to the hard vacuum and in microgravity is different than a spacesuit for the moon, which is different for a spacesuit from Mars. Thinking about the need for flexibility, right? You need to be able to bend your knees and your feet in particular and around your waist if you're going to do a spacewalk on the surface of a moon or a planet, which you really don't for these spacewalks now on the ISS. And also colors, visibility, dust requirements. So all make them very different spacesuits. That's where NASA is focused at the moment. And hopefully we'll see some great new spacesuits come out in the next few years, since they just told us we want to get to the moon by 2024. We got to get working.